So hello and welcome. My name's Steve Novell, and today I'm speaking with Lauren Palsa on Ascension and Herbalism. Lauren is a community healer, herbalist, and artist, and her work, whether through body, energy healing, or kindling the alliance between plants and people, is to help humans remember their way home to themselves. She's been working in private practice for nearly a decade, and she is breaking into her stride as a leader and resource for these incredible times, and her website is www.starseedwell.com. So hi, Lauren.
Hi, Steve.
You're looking very bright. I love the shirt. It's very colorful with all the herbs in the background there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, Cleveland, we don't get too much sun this time of year, so we have to make up for it.
Oh, okay. Can I ask you about your journey into herbalism? I guess you weren't born as a kid going, I want to be a herbalist. Or were you?
Well, my mom actually had a bunch of herbal books growing up, and I always found them really, really fascinating. And then there was these children's books, Juniper and Wise Child. They're kids' books, but I highly recommend them. They're absolutely beautiful, and they're just really steeped in the lore of plant medicine and the connection between women, specifically women healers, using plants, cultivating plants. And I always just adored, that whole paradigm. So I've always resonated in that world. And I feel like I don't know if I was one of the last generations, but I didn't grow up with the cell phone. I grew up outside. So I was really lucky that connection, that innate connection to nature that's in all of us really wasn't distracted out of me right off the get-go. So that was a really good foundation. I'm really grateful for that.
Amazing. For me, when I grew up in my 3D family and world, nature was to run through, do athletics through, or long distance running through, or something like that, or later on, let's climb trees. But I never really saw nature in the same way. It wasn't until later when I came to my awakening that I was realizing, oh my gosh, nature is so healing and nurturing. So I'm a late starter.
The nice thing is it's always there, really beneath our feet all the time. You can't get away from it.
I know. Well, of course, growing up in a city, we have concrete, tarmac roads. And I realized living in a city that nature seems in the background. But when you go out into the wilds of nature, suddenly nature is much more in your face, and I wasn't used to that. But let me ask you, because on your website, you wrote, our earth and her beings are the original apothecary, and our bodies have a far deeper and more symbiotic relationship with the plants than they do with pharmaceutical concoctions. Now, of course, this is very relevant with the whole COVID thing going on across the world, where we're being pushed vaccines. I don't want to get too much into the vaccine question, but most of us have been taught to train pharmaceutical interventions. What do you say about that?
Yeah. And it can be a sticky subject, especially right around now, because there's so much fear, and as soon as we get into that fear frequency, parts of our brain shut down. We just don't think as clearly. But I mean, if you look back at the history of medicine, going into a lab and really tinkering with the chemical structures of often plants, like most of our pharmaceuticals have a plant derivative, but we've really only started severely tinkering with them within the past 50 years or so. So our bodies, have really not developed with these new ways of addressing diseases or issues. Our bodies have really, really developed for, a very, very long time. In conjunction with plants. So it's a more symbiotic relationship. We've known each other longer. The plants in our bodies, we're in tandem. Yeah.
Well, when I grew up, I used to think of, these idea of there's herbal women, in the forest gathering up the twigs and the leaves. I used to think, well, I guess that's a bit quaint, but it wasn't until later that I read some of the history that when Western medicine came along, they kind of bumped off or pushed aside a lot of these women, so that we're the main, trust us, the doctors, and and mostly men, really. I think it's a male-dominated thing, and the women, be gone, otherwise we'll burn you as witches or whatever.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? There is a correlation that I see between women and the land, in microscopic and macroscopic ways, and I don't know what I think about it sometimes. I feel that we are pretty obviously out of balance, and we're finding our way back into balance. And is that just a natural part of life, is, you know, balance and imbalance, that flow up and down? Because I wonder, like, what happened that made us go, you know, as women, like, yes, we will kind of give our power away and kind of shrink this part of ourselves to a more patriarchal way of being. I don't know what exactly made us like shrink back, but it's interesting to look at. And I do feel that it's, you know, every round of balance and imbalance that happens, we come a little bit closer to like a balancing of polarity is a very wonderful sweet spot where we get, you know, the balance between light and dark. I think with every round we come a little bit closer to harmonizing in a really cool way. And I think that's what we're experiencing now, is a shift towards more harmony that comes from a little bit of an extreme. We're coming back from a pretty big extreme.
Well, I think it's great. I've always trusted earth-based spirituality, you know, the old pagan paths and shamanism, and I trained in a lot of these, and then Wiccan. I liked them because I trusted them, because I've met several women who were trained in the Church of England, for example. And what I realized about all of them was they are walking heads. They're centered in their mind. They think about the world. And I realized that religion was really trying to connect us to source, but they couldn't really do it because they're disconnected from their own bodies. Yeah. And so that was like a realization, like listening to these people talking about religion from a very mind point of view, what they've been told, not what they're experiencing really.
Yeah. And you see it too, like, you know, with birth and death, you know, this disconnect between the life phases. You know, we have very little connection between, you know, how we come into this world and how we leave this world. Our medical system likes to take us into pieces parts, like I'm a foot doctor, I'm a heart doctor, I'm a whatever doctor, like this fragmenting, is the source of a lot of our discomfort.
Yeah, so it's very masculine mind to segment everything, isn't it? To, you know, I went to a dentist recently. I'm going to refer you to a specialist. I thought you were a specialist. You know, I'm paying. You're a holistic dentist. You know, do I need another one? You know, and then there's this fragmentation. You're right, really, about it. But I've really got into herbalism. I must show you. I've got a load of. I could show you some of the ones. I mean, I don't mind promoting this brand because maybe it's naughty of me, but I do like this brand. Hold on.
No, do it. If you like a brand, yeah.
Here's one that I've got. They're called Indigo Herbs. They're made in Glastonbury. And I must say, I really like them. There were some other ones in Britain as well. Neil's Yard do some as well, but I really like Indigo Herbs on Glastonbury. They do all kinds of tinctures. I've got lots of tinctures that I use, and I find them really effective. But let me ask you about the Ascension. The point of our discussion today is Ascension symptoms.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it from the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual point of view. Physically, what do you find are the most common things you treat people for in terms of Ascension with herbs?
Yeah, physically. Well, and it's interesting because, you know, physical, mental, spiritual, they end up all rolling into one in one way.
I'm a man. I have to segment them.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
But you know, so if I have a client coming in, right now, people are talking a little bit about like body aches that kind of don't have a source. Like it's not like they fell over and, you know, they have a bump. So just like achy, things are kind of moving in them. And then it transfers around, like, you know, goes from one shoulder to the other shoulder without really, you know, any reason. Headaches, so body aches, headaches, sleep stuff, like a lot of nervous system stuff. And, you know, that's what I see the most, and the most effective ways of helping people I've been finding has to do with our nervous system, just really supporting, nourishing, and also kind of calming our nervous system. And that seems to really kind of get almost everywhere. So, well, going back to like body aches and headaches, like salt baths are really wonderful if you're in a place where you can be in like big body of salt water, like you're by the ocean, like that's wonderful. Being out in nature is, you know, even if you're bringing nature into your like small apartment, just building a relationship with, you know, any sort of plant is going to be really, really healing. I think it's an idea of like we really need to take a pill and, take it for so long, and then we're going to have some sort of direct result. And I'm finding that most healing has to do with like our relationships, our relationship to ourselves, our relationship to whatever ally we're using in the plant world. And that's where our most like deep and effective healing comes from. So it's not a mindless thing, taking a plant is not just throw it on in. I mean, that works too, but like the best benefits are going to happen via the richness of your relationships to the plants that you're taking and the natural world around you. What else do I see? So stress stuff, anxiety, depression, fear, kind of like a little, like I call it loosen our body, like where we feel like really kind of scattered and like little like numinous and like just a little sloppy inside, like we don't know who we are. So stuff for that I use. Holy basil is really lovely. Lemon balm is really lovely. Ashwagandha I like a lot for our stress response, supporting the stress response, supporting our adrenal glands. And then dream stuff, which is, part of our nervous system, part of our brain and everything. So it ties in there, but that's a really interesting thing too, because people are having, hard time sleeping, or they're sleeping, quote, too much, or they're having interesting dreams. So this is something that's a little bit newer, just more stuff about sleep. So there's a lot of stuff to help with sleep. I like skullcap and wild lettuce. They're a little bit more gentle than valerian. A lot of people like valerian, but I'm finding that it's a little aggressive. I think we're getting more sensitive as a species, and sometimes we actually need less than we think we need. Mugwort is a really lovely plant ally for like dream time. Even just having some mugwort in a little satchel and putting it by your bed can be nice, or you can take it in tea form. I see the most having to do with like our nervous system. Addressing that seems to be reaching most of the physical stuff that people are dealing with. I almost feel that like our nervous system is expanding, like we're being upgraded to be able to receive a different frequency, a higher frequency of information. And we're having all of these, symptoms as we're expanding. And some of us are frying out, I think, like it's just a little too much information and we're just kind of tapping out. We're going to go a different route.
So with the nervous system calming and supporting, is there anything in particular for that you would recommend other than you've said, or is those ones really the best ones, like the ashwagandhas and
ashwagandha, holy basil, St. John's wort can be really helpful. That's really one of the only herbs, so generally speaking, herbs are incredibly safe. You really can't hurt yourself on them. However, they can interact with pharmaceuticals that you're taking. So that's the main contraindication between like our bodies and herbs, is really the herbs and medications. That's the main problem. St. John's wort is one of the ones that if you're taking like an antidepressant, a mood stabilizer, what have you, there can be interactions there. So in that case, you need to be working with whoever prescribed. But I do like St. John's wort. St. John's wort's really lovely for our nervous system. It's really cool. Like if people who are missing a limb, and they have phantom limb symptoms, it can be really helpful for that. So it's not even like our physical nervous system. It's like the etheric and energetic nervous system that it addresses too, which is just super fascinating.
Okay, cool. I've actually got St. John's wort here, which I use occasionally. I don't know why, I just intuitively felt that I should, because I also feel I've been going through a lot of the Ascension. Ashwagandha I do actually have licorice. I don't know if that's classed as a herb, but I like licorice as well.
Yeah, it's totally an herb. Absolutely. I haven't worked with that one that much. And the cool thing about herbs is like we get like people, like we resonate with different herbs. Everybody resonates differently. So you'll find like friends that like you get along well with, and listen to that. And we're all very different. And I think that's part of finding, like when you're working with any healer, you kind of find somebody that resonates with you, that can help bring you things that are going to be, friendly to your system. And so there's a million of us out there who all are like different but the same, and just finding the right fit it's fun. You can feel that click.
Yes, absolutely. Can I ask you around, because we kind of, anxiety and fear and depression, they're going to be huge. I know we mentioned depression, St. John's Wort, but fear and anxiety, because of the COVID and people listening to the news too much, if someone's having anxiety, for example, or panic attacks, what kind of things would you kind of look at?
Yeah. From an acute perspective, I do like the Bach flower remedies. There's it's now blanking. I think it's like stress away. I have it over there. Rescue remedy. That's
rescue,
what it is.
Yeah, rescue. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I have that.
Yeah, an acute anxiety situation, taking, rescue remedy. I'm not too big on essential oils. I like them, but I kind of feel that there's a bit of misuse and overuse of the plant world because they're so condensed, so powerful, and they're so popular that I feel they're slightly abusive, but they can also be really helpful in those acute, stress periods. So what's a good one? White Angelica.
White Angelica, okay. I like Neroli. I don't know if that one.
Neroli's beautiful too.
I love that one.
Yeah. And again, it's such a fluid, like it's different from the medical paradigm in that, an herbalist really isn't going to tell you this is what you need to do and like precise. It's more about finding the relationships that work with you, that when you build are going to really help expand you. So it's what you resonate with.
What if it's less acute?
Yeah. I would be looking at how people sleep with depression and anxiety. Magnesium as a supplement can be really helpful for that. Yeah. Growing plants in that case, when you're starting to take care, sometimes when we start to take care of something else, it can help give us a little mirror about how to, better love our own selves. Yeah. A little bit of distraction outside of ourselves can actually bring us home to ourselves. So growing a plant might be really helpful. How we eat, we're eating herbs all the time. So if it's, you're dealing with anxiety and depression on a like chronic long-term scale, looking at like what you're consuming as far as plants go, as far as anything goes, right? Like anything that you're putting inside any of your little systems really matters. Yeah. And how, and this kind of segues into like how to take the herbs and where you're sourcing, where those plants are grown. It matters, just like where a human grows, we are susceptible to our environment. The plant, it's the same thing.
So you think organic best, I guess?
Totally, always.
Organic
and if it's like local, because they're going to be specific to, the earth underneath you, which is what you need to, like as somebody in London, like you need what is literally underneath you in a different way than, I need what is underneath me. And so having plants that are grown in your area, you're literally imbibing, that which you grow on. And that can be really, really beautiful. And you're harmonizing with the earth right where you are.
Can I ask you, because foods, there's this idea of eating seasonally, is there also a thing with plant? I've never thought about it actually before, but do we eat herbs seasonally, or would you not? Is that not so important?
I don't know. I've never really thought about that because we do lots of interesting, even like ritualistic, ceremonial things with like decocting and preserving herbs. So like I'm thinking of St. John's Wort, you harvest at like the peak of summer, right? And that's why you get that like beautiful, bright sun, energy that comes in through the St. John's Wort plant, that happy, bright. And then some of the best time to take it is in, the dead of winter to just kind of lift you slightly. So I wouldn't say it's necessary to take the herbs like at the time that they're peaking, because it seems like sometimes we need, the opposite. Right. But that's a really good question that I haven't really thought about.
I just thought about that. It's just, I never thought about it before till now, actually. Well, let me ask you one that I'd never also thought about before, but how about spiritual well-being? Can herbs strengthen our connection to our self, our energy source?
Absolutely. Yeah, of
I'm
course.
glad you said that. If you'd have said no,
Yeah.
I would have been.
Yeah, no, not really, Steve. Not picking up on what you're putting down.
Yeah. What do we use? I guess there's different things. Is it about connection to the earth, connection to ourself, our authentic self? It's a whole big area, really, isn't it?
Yeah, with spirituality. Well, the first thing that popped into my head is like, even incense, which is herbs like, frankincense and myrrh, like they're deeply rooted in Christianity and religion. So like working with plants and using them in ritual and ceremony is, as old as we go. It's very much part of it. So I guess it's more about looking at like the spiritual route that works for you, your path up that mountain, and looking to see what herbs or plants might support you. Like even psilocybin right now is, we're coming into a renaissance of all this, and that is, spirituality and all of that. It's a really, really cool time to be looking at plants and the earth and how we are innately connected, and how to really, facilitate that relationship for the betterment of everybody. It's very, very fun.
Well, yes. How about, let me ask you, what do you feel about microdosing, which seems to be coming on board now? I mean, microdosing of magic mushrooms to help open the channel.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, personally, I feel it's wonderful. Absolutely, absolutely wonderful. I feel if you are like listening to how you feel about something or your instinct about something. So if your instinct is saying, that's not for me, listen to that. But if your instinct is saying, or your feeling is saying there's something innately like compelling about this, let that unfold. And, looking at any fear you have, really picking them up, bringing them into our hearts, and letting them kind of fall away, because sometimes the fears are, constructs. They're given to us. They're not an innate warning. It's just us leaving, a prescribed path. So sometimes people have fear around psilocybin or mushrooms or, any of those ayahuasca, peyote, any of that stuff. And so if you have fear, resistance coupled with a strong pull to take that opportunity, to bring that fear in and look at where it comes from, because that's part of the healing, right? Yeah,
part of my healing too. My father used to put the fear of the patriarchal God in me when he talked about drugs. And so I didn't come across anything to my 50s. And microdosing to me seems a wonderful thing. I do actually personally like it. Although I must say I did try once microdosing with marijuana, and my body really did not like it at all. So that was one thing I couldn't do.
Not your plant friend.
Not mine, no. No, I went to Oregon. I think in Oregon, I realized that in Oregon, everything's legal. And I went into a big shop called the Electric Lettuce. And it was just like going into a grocery store about which plant, where do you want it, what bits, gummy bears or everything. And I did try it. I was like, oh my God, no, my body really does not like this. So I have to honor that. So yeah. Yeah. But definitely plant medicine. Of course, plant medicine opens up to spirituality. How silly of me. I didn't connect it. But let me ask you about, you have a Starseedwell collective, an organic cooperative of healers, movers, makers, seers, beings, and businesses contributing to our collective rise by doing their thing. What is that? Yeah, so when I was kind of going through the last rendition of my business, I kept feeling this really deep pull to have like far more community. So again, talking about like how we kind of, fraction ourselves off, I'm feeling this pull to really kind of bring people together. And that was my way, or my first way of trying to reach out and do that. And it's been really cool, because it kind of started off as a very vague, amorphic, like I would like to build a space for community, for people of, this resonance to just come together,
without any fees or anything. Like there's nothing about it other than like drawing people together. And it's been really, really fun. And a lot of cool things have kind of tumbled from that like I did not expect at all. Like, just retreats and side shoots of groups of people. So it is extremely organic, but it's a nice, I think, resource for the people who are resources. And it's been fun to play with.
That sounds great. Well, so anybody interested in your work, starseedwell.com is the website. There will be a link going out with this podcast. And Lauren, thank you for taking the time to chat with me. It's been a great chat. I've learned. It's every day's a learning day, right?
Absolutely. Yes. I learned too. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, Lauren. Well, thanks very much. Lots of love to you.
All right. Lots of love. Take care.